everybody to another episode of The Paycheck, where I Pay, your host, will be checking the culture with an interesting guest. I don't know if you've seen all the other episodes before, but they're pretty good. If you don't know, check it out on the YouTube channel of Sneakerjagers. Now, today I have somebody who's internationally known, Mr. Curtis Richardson, songwriter extraordinaire. I can give you way more accolades, but I don't want to do that because I'm always scared that something's going to be wrong or mispronounced.
That's fine.
So, yeah, just a quick introduction. What should people know you from?
Well, I'm Curtis Richardson. I'm a songwriter, producer, A&R now. I'm known mostly for songwriting and producing, so I work with Jennifer Lopez, Rihanna, Craig David, Joss Stone, David Guetta, Disciples, Tiesto, Hardwell, and a whole host of other artists in my career. And yeah, so it's something I really enjoy doing, and I'm still doing. But right now I'm working with a few other companies, and I'm also really interested in music education and helping the next generation of creators so they can navigate this industry well, as you are. Faye is also invested in that as well. So that's what I'm doing, and then also I'll be moving into publishing space later this year, A&Ring a few artists and songwriters.
Wow, it's almost like you have to do this a lot.
Yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But it's amazing. So you pretty much summed up what you do and what you're going to do. But I want to take it back to the beginning.
Yes.
The origins of Curtis Richa.
Okay.
Well, as you know, this is a show about the culture. You know, this is intentional from the sneaker culture being part of a bigger culture. When did you fall in love with music?
I was, from my parents say, I was always in love with music. My mother says since I was an infant. Apparently I learned later on that I'm from a musical family, but I do remember my first songs. There are two songs that I remember when I was 3 was Rock the Boat by 𝗬𝗏𝗏 and Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille. Those are like the two songs that I knew. I think the first artist that I kind of was attached to was Natalie Cole. I think she had a song called This Will Be that I was really into, and I loved her. She kind of looked like my mom a little bit, so I kind of feel like I knew her.
Right.
So essentially, and then when I got older, I realized that I had a cousin who was in a famous like disco funk band called Instant Funk, which were very popular in the late 70s, early 80s. And I would go to his house, and he would have plaques on his wall, and I'm like, wow. What is a plaque? That looks, what is a nice picture with the record that looks silver and gold in it? You know, so that was it. But then I later found out that my whole entire, especially my dad's side, they were all musicians. They all created music, and I just thought that everyone created music. Right.
So it was normal for you. You were born into a musical family. As was I. I'm just not playing any instrument, or I'm not being an artist, but again, there's different aspects in the music industry. Right. And songwriting is one that used to be very overlooked, and I think that nowadays there's more attention to it. So because you can sing as well, like let me just state that when I first met you, I'm like, why is he not an artist? So we had that conversation. But so when you fell in love with music, you just, you know, as any kid was, you had your idols, you were looking up to people, you were, you know, mimicking people. But what came first, the singing or the writing?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me. I believe the singing came first because I was in choirs I played the instrument, I played clarinet for when I was really young. So, okay, it goes all the way back. So when I was 2, my parents, their neighbor downstairs had an organ, and they gave it to us for me to learn. So I played it a little bit, and then when I was like 8 or 9, I said I want to play the clarinet. So I played it for like 4 years.
Why the clarinet?
I don't know. It was just some random instrument that
I like the clarinet.
I think what it was. I think I used to watch a lot of old movies, and then I would see them playing it, and I was like, okay, I want to play it. Right. Then I was at that point I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada with my mom.
Oh, really?
And I went to what is now considered one of the top performing arts schools there. It's called the Las Vegas High School. But there was a teacher that said, you know, have you tried singing? And I was like, sure. So I started singing around 11 or 12, I think middle school, then high school. And then I was in choirs. And then I started doing theater, and I would sing, dance, and act. And
Oh,
from
wow.
like 14 up to like 17, I was in theater heavy. So I was really into performance
Right.
and singing. And I did show choir, theater. I lived
Right.
and breathed it. I was in theater. I was choreographing dances. I was singing. I was acting. I was doing, like, I was the lead in like most of the plays I was in.
Wow. See, I did not know that
Yeah,
about you.
yeah.
That's amazing. So the conversation that you and I had way back when I first met you is, you know, when I asked you why you're not an artist, what I remember is like, you don't want to like necessarily be out there. So for you to tell me now that you were starting and performing,
Yeah.
what changed?
Well, I was actually invited to a performance arts intense program after high school. I graduated high school when I was 17, and it was a school in New York called, it was an 18-month program. And I remember sitting down with my parents because I applied for colleges and I got into a few, and they really wanted me, especially my mother, wanted me to go to school for something other than performing arts,
Right.
like just to have a fallback, you know.
Right.
And I obliged, and I went to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, my alma mater, and I did a double major in labor studies and journalism. But even there, that is where I discovered songwriting. So it was a detour, but it kind of led me to me discovering that I love writing songs. So I always wrote songs. But I didn't.
You just didn't do anything.
Yeah,
with
when
it.
I was like 6 or 7, I was writing poems, and then somewhere around 10 or 11, I started making up songs and writing them, and secretly writing, and didn't know that's what I was doing until I was like 17 in college. I remember I had to perform at a coffee house because I was still singing, and I was in the gospel choir. And then some friends would do these little programs in coffee shops.
Right.
Like, oh, come
like
see
little
our show.
jams.
Yeah, then I had another friend who did like this whole, they used to do these like fashion shows, and they wanted performers, and so she, could you sing at our show? Because, you know, we need somebody to sing. So normally they thought I would do a cover, but at that point I was like, okay, I don't want to do any more covers.
You started doing your own songs?
So I wrote a song for it, like the day before, and thinking.
That's dope.
So I wrote a song, and I sang the song at the event. And it was called Reflections. It was like this really deep song.
You still have it?
I know the song. I think it's somewhere in one of my journals. But I sang the song, and people were crying.
Really?
They were like boo-hooing. I'm like, why are they crying? And I'm singing it. I said, I don't want to stop. So I finished it, and then like after the program, they were like, where can I get that song? I love this song. They had no idea it was an original song.
Oh, yeah, so they were like, whose is it?
Yeah, like, whose song is that? It's a great song. I said, no, it's my original song. And it was like my first inclination of knowing that this is something I really wanted to do.
That you're good at.
Yeah, I really wanted to do it. So after that, I go, let me write more songs. So I think that's another friend named Rochelle Claiborne. I never forget, she was sick. She was one of the greatest singers on the campus, and we would write together. And then I started doing I directed a play with my friend Tanya Manning.
Oh, awesome.
Yard, yeah, and it was an adaptation of Fences from August Wilson. And then I realized that the creative arts hadn't left me, so I just wanted to kind of continue doing it. And then my friend 𝗦𝗢𝗏𝗡𝗥𝗏𝗧, towards my senior year, was like, let's go in the studio. And then the recording aspect of writing became my love. And that's what made me get invested in songwriting.
So it started with Reflections.
Reflections
was the first song. So, okay.
Yep.
I'm going to act like I don't know anything.
Okay.
Just to relay the information. So when you write a song, you wrote Reflections. It was probably something that you felt. It came from your place. But how does the music come into play? Because writing a song is technically the lyrics.
It was a lyric and a melody, yes.
Right.
So,
and so how did you do that? With your clarinet, with the organ?
With the piano, but I didn't really play. I just sang it a cappella because I wasn't too.
Oh, you sang a cappella at the event?
Yeah, so I wasn't too certain about
the chords and
playing
stuff.
and singing at the same time.
Oh yeah, because your first time.
Right.
Also,
with 𝗬𝗢𝗏𝗡𝗦, he was a track producer. He was in a rap group at the time with my friend Saki. They had a rap group duo, but he also produced tracks. I knew he'd produce, so I was like, you know, you need a writer, and he was like, yeah, I would love for you to write with me. So he would do the track, and then that was a new experience for me going in the studio. And then I met a bigger producer named 𝗬𝗢𝗏𝗡𝗦𝗡, who eventually went on to produce "Hate Me Now." And yeah, I met him before. I actually was in the studio while I was creating the track for "Hate Me Now," which is a whole.
So you met him like super early on.
I met him 3 or 4 years prior.
Okay.
3 years prior, and then through a mutual friend, singer. Her name was Simone Hines, who's an incredible singer. And we went in the studio like a couple years before he did "Hate Me Now," and then he taught me. He really taught me. Him, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and another producer named Michael Moon taught me, but 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 really taught me the art of production. Right. And how to produce and how to put the record together and what it should feel like and how to record vocals and how to vocal produce. And that was, so his studio, EMF Studios, which is located in Teaneck, New Jersey, I would go to a studio, and that studio is still there, and I would sit underneath and just learn how. So he would bring in singers, we work with a group, and that's where I met my first collaborator. Her name was 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and 𝗧𝗏𝗏 Allen now, I believe. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 taught me how to arrange. So that's why collaboration is really important, because I learned vocal harmonies and arrangement and putting the record together. And that was my school for like 3 years. Before I got any cuts, I was in that studio faithfully working my job, going to the studio, just building songs.
So that's the kind of like the journey on how you started learning more about building an entire song.
Yes.
So it starts with, okay, I have some words and some feelings that I want to put onto paper. Then you put some melodies, but then you meet a producer who's going to help you do production, and then you met somebody who's going to help you harmonize and do your vocals even better. So that's a great learning curve. Yep. But also an organic curve to learn from people that actually took you under their wing, so to speak. Yes. Which leads me to my next question. You know, how old were you around this time? Early 20s?
No, I graduated school when I was like almost 20.
Late teens?
Almost 21.
Oh,
college, like university. Right. When I started really recording, I was probably 24 or 5.
Oh, so mid-20s.
Mid-20s, and so this is like the mid-20s. So I didn't get my first cut till my placement till I was 27.
What placement was that?
It's an artist named Zelma Davis, who was from CNC Music Factory, and we did a song called Power. I wrote it with a producer named 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who was a good friend of mine still. And it was for a dance label, but it did pretty well in the dance world.
So wait a minute, are you just nonchalant saying, I did this song called Power from CNC, that was a hit?
Well, no, it's actually, no, not the Power you know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not that Power. No, it's not that Power.
Oh, it's a different Power.
It's a different Power. I wish it was that, honestly. That came years before. So I did that record, and then it was an underground hit. And then I worked with an artist named 𝗦𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗝𝗏, who I'm still very cool with now. And he was signed to Prize from Fuji's. He was to Elektra. Right. And we did a record with, me and 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 did called Wait for the Day. It was on his first album. The album that had Miss California, which was a big hit. Right. And then 3LW, and then, me and 𝗦𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Riddick Woods wrote the biggest song, the first big song, which is the J-Lo and LL-Cool-J, All I Have. So when me and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that became my biggest hit, and it was towards the beginning of my career. So it was kind of weird, because I thought, okay, shouldn't this happen later? Yeah. Like, why is this happening now? Like,
well,
why?
You put in the work. I mean, and this goes to show that you never know when something can pop off. Yep. And just because you, again, casually mentioning things like, oh, I did this and this and this, and then this hit came. So that was All I Have from J-Lo and LL-Cool-J. That was a huge worldwide hit. And so that was at the beginning of your career. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel great and nervous and have anxiety at the same time.
Because you have to follow that up. Like if that comes quickly, you're like, okay, now the next thing has to be great.
That's the anxiety, and you can't predict what will happen next. So I had a friend of mine. It was funny because at the time, the person who managed me for years, Reno Martin, kind of guided me through it because I was like, how do I? He told me it was going to be a hit. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's going to be a hit. And he's like, no, it's going to be a hit. And I remember when me and 𝗧𝗪𝗑𝗑𝗏 worked on it, 𝗧𝗪𝗑𝗏 Riddick who's going on to do incredible work with Beyonce and Rihanna.
Right.
We, and many others, but me and her had no idea that it was going to be this hit. And I remember it carried over for a year because we did it in 2002 and towards the end. And it carried over for a long time. So then it was like the race to follow it up.
Right, yeah.
But no one tells you, there's very few that follow it up. It's just, you can't control.
No, and plus you don't know how the industry is gonna move, how the fans or what the trends are. And you just don't know what the artists want.
Well, artists will take your record, you're pitching feverishly.
Right.
You know, so towards the end of 2003, I said, okay, you know what? Just do what you do and let things happen as they happen. And I met one of my, who's like a sister to me, Charlie name was Charlie Vox as an artist, but Charlene Gilliam, and then we met and then we clicked and we started, working together.
Right.
And I said, you know what, this feels good. So, I love working with others, all of the women that I work with taught me something very powerful. And then we went to a writing camp. I think the same year, Charlie, the same year. I did a song that ended up being placed on Joss Stone for her Mind, Body, and Soul, which is her classic album. Right. And the album did so well.
What song did you do?
I did a song called Don't Know How with 𝗣𝗢𝗑𝗏𝗧, who did Macy Gray's I Try, Justin Gray, who's gone on to do so many incredible things, and Daniel Pierre. We wrote the song in a writing camp, which was Justin and Brandon Gray's writing camp called in Canada, which was the Nucleus. So they really had, those camps really was where I grew my skill.
So that goes to show camps are important. Some people are like, oh, writing camps, nothing ever comes out of it. But yeah, depending on what you do and who you work with. Shout out to Charlie. I love Charlie. She's an amazing artist as well.
Yes, she's great.
I'm listening to your story and I have 1,000 questions, so I should interject when I do. First of all, something went wrong with the usual cakes, so we got different cakes. How is the cake?
The red velvet cake is amazing.
Okay, well this is not the usual cakes, but I had to have cakes.
It's great cake.
Going back to the songwriting, the placement. We're going a little bit quickly through it, but what I want to know is, okay, you told us the story about when you started writing, how you learned production and the vocals, the harmonizing, but how do you even get in a position, or how did you get into a position where you even get to write songs for J-Lo and LL or Rihanna? Like, what did it take? There's a gap.
It's a stroke of perseverance and a little bit of and blessings and luck. I think a lot of it has to do with the work ethic. I think the J-Lo thing was just so. It's just being at the right place at the right time. To be honest with you, for me and 𝗧𝗪𝗑𝗏𝗏, honestly.
How did it get picked up? Like, because you're talking about
we were sent in by the label to write for the track, and then we wrote the song, and we finished it with Corey Rooney, and then she cut it. So that situation in itself is very not normal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It happens, but not all the time. The Rihanna situation was an artist. We were developing an artist from Canada named 𝗬𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏 at the time, and we recorded all these songs
for
Leah, and she was in 2 steps away from getting signed to Def Jam by Jay-Z's team. And then the team heard it. L.A. Reid heard the record. They didn't end up signing Leah, but they ended up
Giving
wanting
the
the
song for Rihanna.
But the song originally wasn't for Rihanna.
Right. You
That's
didn't
a
write
story
it
that
with
no
that in
one,
mind.
no one told. So Leah had the song, then the song Christina Milian was supposed to go to her.
Oh.
And then they didn't do it with her. They ended up saying, no, let's give it to Rihanna. Rihanna cut the song. At that time, she had Pound the Replay. Her first album had already been out. And so she cut the record, and I loved Rihanna. From the beginning, I thought that she was an incredible artist. We were honored to do the song, but I felt gutted that my artist couldn't do the song.
Right, of course.
Her
you wrote
version
it
of
for
the song
her,
was incredible too. And, you know, we produced the song.
Which song was this?
Called 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗧. Me and Charlie produced it. And Charlie really wrote that song. Like that's really Charlie's baby. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then we produced the song, me and her, under the Conglomerate, which was the original Conglomerate. I know Busta Rhymes has a Conglomerate, but we were like before that Conglomerate.
Oh, y'all were the original ones.
We were the original ones for the
Sorry,
production.
Busta.
Y'all love Busta, trust me. And so we produced it, and the song went on to really establish a good resume for Charlie and for myself.
Right.
And but pitching songs is hard. You have to have an ability of just. You'd have to have some sort of thick skin with pitching.
Well, not some sort. You have to have a thick skin for this industry.
You have to, because I have a saying, and I've used it for years. It's called rejection is redirection.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And so when you get rejected, and this goes for all creators, don't look at it as a personal attack or a feeling of it's a charge to what you do.
Yeah.
Just say, okay, it wasn't meant for this project, it was meant for something else. Because most of my songs after that were meant for one thing and then ended up somewhere else.
Yeah.
I can tell you stories.
I'm just laughing at how the song just got passed around. like some rag doll.
Yeah, even the 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗏 song wasn't written for it was written for Brandy at the time.
Oh wow.
And then with the thought was for her, and then it ended up on 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗏.
Are these things, and this is just me wondering, because you know I'm in the industry but I don't know everything, especially not on the songwriting part. Are these things that you're actually even supposed to say?
No, you're not.
Oh.
But I can say it.
Oh, you can say it because it's your song.
I can say it now because it was.
It's so long ago.
Yeah, so it was also, even though we intend it for an artist, it doesn't mean that it goes to the artist.
Right, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
It never
you know,
does.
so, you know.
And and songwriting, pretty much you do for artists. There's a lot of artists that write their own songs and they have to pitch to labels, but you pretty much are kind of like a middleman somewhere in between, because you're pitching to artists, and whatever they do with the song is up to them if they get it. So are you a person that sees, well, you see potentially new artists, but is it easier for you to pitch with people that already have a good deal, or do you also...
It's tough pitching now. I mean, I know for me, I still pitch.
Do you have to have you have to have a network, but do you have to know somebody at the label?
I think it's important. I mean, I would say if you know someone in the management team, it's better. The labels is tougher because they get so many pitches. I do pitch to labels. I find it depends on the territory that I'm pitching in, like whether it's in the United States or Korea or what have you. I've been able to place quite a bit in Korea.
Yeah.
America is tough because a lot of the major artists are with production teams and labels.
And they already have their
network. Although we did work with Rihanna, it's not like it's a given that we're going to work with her again because her career's expanded since those days. We were fortunate because at that time, because Reynolds, who managed us, had a relationship with Jay Brown, so it was a direct pitch to him.
All right.
Whereas, it's not so easy now because you have to consider that they have their own team, their own writers that they love working with. They write themselves. So it's a lot of factors that go into placing. Sometimes you get blessed enough to get the song there, but you have to be flexible because maybe the song as you've written it may change because the artist may have a different idea or feeling about what they want to do with the song. And I love that. I love when artists write with me, or we submit a song and they say, okay, I like to make these changes. I'm open to it.
So, okay, you you're talking about a combination of luck and being there at the right time, and talent, obviously. Do you feel like you being in New Jersey/New York played a big role in that? Because you're already in the middle of where everything is going on. That helps.
I think it played a part early in my career because New York was definitely the hot spot for music. LA, maybe Atlanta would be considered, Nashville possibly. I still think there's challenges though. It doesn't matter whether you're in the flow or not. I think it has to do with perseverance and work ethic.
Right.
I think it does. I think if you work hard enough and long enough and persevere, you're going to get there.
That's with everything, I think, in any industry.
That's why I tell people, don't give up. Like if you're really passionate, it's something you really, really want to do, stick to it. Don't give up on it because, look,
unless you suck at it.
Well, that's true.
I mean, I don't want to kill people's dreams. But even then,
find something you love to do.
Yeah.
I was in my late 20s when I had my first big break. Yeah. On the verge of 30. I
mean, there's people that are in their 40s and 50s
it's
when
never too late. I hear people say, "Oh, it's, I'm past my prime" or whatever. I've had people have conversations with people.
Yeah.
So it's too late to start doing it. It's never too late. As long as you're breathing.
Yeah, you can do
and
whatever you want.
And you're good at it. You can start at it. Just do it. Especially now. Like it was even harder then.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. Now it's easier with all the
technology.
Media.
Yeah. You can put your music out. You had to go through a label those days. Now you can put your music out yourself.
Independently, yeah. You don't need anybody. You can get airplay on Spotify. You don't have to go to radio with pluggers. Going back to Curtis, as you know, we're talking about not just what you do, because we're going a little in depth about the songwriting and the industry. How did, you're sitting here with, your great shirt on, black and abroad. Because you are black and you're abroad.
I love this company. I love this shirt. Yeah. It's for travelers.
I love it. And you're wearing your chain. I love the chain. He originally didn't want to, he wanted to tuck it in. I was like, no, keep it out. Going back to where you grew up in the area of New York, how did hip hop culture influence you in your personal growth, but also in your career?
Oh wow! I mean, I remember. I was there. I think I was definitely aware of the origins of hip hop. My first recollection of hip hop was, I think the very beginning. Since the beginning, but I think when I really got into it, I was into like 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗏.
Oh, right.
Roxanne Shante, the 80s hip hop. I mean, the 70s, I kind of remember it, but it was like the late 70s, but definitely the 80s, like, Curtis Blow, who they used to call me when I was a kid in school. They used to say, "Oh, Curtis Blow." I was like, no. And I was like, it was a really big thing in the early 80s and, all the 80s rap. I love the 80s rap, like Public Enemy, Salt and Pepper, of course, the mid 80s. Of course, then the 90s, of course, Queen Latifah, Monie Love, MC Lyte, on the male side, LL Cool J, of course, who was a legend.
And you got to
I worked with him and collaborated with him.
Have you been in the same space with him?
No, I haven't. Unfortunately, he's a legend.
Right.
Run DMC, and then you had the Beastie Boys.
Right.
Cool G Rap. All those.
Right. How did
Big Daddy Kane. Sorry.
Influence you, or did that have any influence on how you grew up? Because obviously it was a tumultuous time in New York.
Yeah, it did. It did. I remember definitely what was going on. I lived in New Jersey at the time, but it did shape our culture. It shaped urban music,
right?
Especially R&B. Like I was into R&B. I was into hip hop too. I think they told stories.
Yeah.
And they really spoke on things that were happening, especially like conscious groups that spoke on those stories. Like Boogie Down Productions and all those groups, they really, they spoke on so many things that were going on, like Public Enemy, and you had Spike Lee doing his movies as well. So visually and musically, hip hop culture influenced how we dressed, how we acted, how we thought about our culture, the pride we took in our culture. So the 80s were just really like intensely, they definitely shaped a lot as far as how you approach and how you thought about. Even to this day, like I feel like music should have messages in them, whether it be good or bad. Like you should speak about your life and your experience and what you're going through, what you're feeling. And I like to also uplift, you know, but I will say like it definitely influenced me, and you know, and the producers too, like influenced me too. So there was like a lot of great production being done. I know even the producers that influenced me musically to do professional music was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Right,
and they would incorporate a lot of hip hop
sampling
and there's things.
In the 90s, it became kind of like a fusion between hip hop and R&B. You had a lot of singers jumping on hooks for rappers. You had a lot of rappers jumping on hooks for singers. I mean, even early 2000s. I mean, the song that you did with J-Lo, you had LL Cool J on it. So you know, it became integrated into each other, like the R&B and hip hop. Even visually, like you said, I mean, when Hype Williams came up with his videos, I mean, the style, the way that people were dressing. I mean, we recently were talking about Missy Elliott.
Oh, legend.
I mean, how she came in. I mean, how was that for you, being behind the scenes as a songwriter?
For me, it's funny you mentioned Missy because you know I get kind of emotional. I'm like, well, not emotional. How so? I think Missy is more than what she's described as. You have to remember, I read credits, I'm behind the scenes, I see things. So when Missy came in the industry, I thought, wow, here we have a hip hop artist, an incredible, tremendously gifted songwriter, an exceptional producer. And that producer and songwriter part gets diminished, meaning she wrote for other artists. She wrote hit songs and produced songs for other artists. There's a list of artists I can name. So her and Timbaland, they changed the landscape of how music sounded.
Yes.
So for me, it was like, okay, you have to pay attention to what hip hop was doing from a rhythmic standpoint, because they're changing the pendulum and the temper and the tempo. And so, and I love tempo and I love writing up tempo. So for me, it was like what Missy was doing with the double, triple time. She was one in a million, changed it. And I was like, oh, it was fresh. There's the rhythms that they were doing. So Missy, to me, is a game changer. Because, you know, as a person, you know, as a hip hop artist, producer, a woman.
Yeah.
And I was hoping it would open the door for more women to be acknowledged as producers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Timbaland is amazing, an incredible producer, legendary, but him and Missy together were just unstoppable. Yeah. They were unstoppable. And so I think my heroes are more people behind the scenes than the artists. I love artists. There's certain artists that you can say I
No, absolutely.
love.
No, but to me, you know, a little background about me, I've always taken more to producers than artists, simply because being not an English native, I would hear the music before I would hear the lyrics, the words, the message. So I would take to the music and really listen to it. And, you know, coming up in an era where you had the booklets and the you know, reading who did the drums and whatever, that to me was very, I needed to do that. Like, I hate that I don't have the booklet, because sure, Spotify shows the songwriter and the producers, but I can't see all the little details anymore. And so going to that, I've always gave extra love to producers. I've written articles about producers. I've interviewed a lot of producers because I felt at the time, not necessarily today, but at the time they were underappreciated. They had to run behind their money. People just thought they could get a production for free because, hey, if it blows up, I'll give you some. It was just, they told me stories that was always so tough for them. Now, you know, going to 2022, the producer is almost an artist on its own. The producer doesn't need the artist to put out music anymore. And so it shifted, but for me, producers are still a little bit underrated and undervalued.
Yeah, I think producers, I mean, my era, we have mega producers like Timbaland and Rodney Jerkins.
Right.
Of course, my favorite, you know, Jimmy Jam, Taylor Lewis. Before them, Teddy Riley. We had LA and Babyface.
Yeah.
So those, we had producers to look up to.
Right.
This generation, not so much, because the producers are not like the pinnacle. There's a few, but I think you're right. I think
it shifted. The
really,
way the producer is shifted.
Well, I think too, having those liner notes, those CD pocket booklets, gave us a preview on what was being done. Whereas digitally, the credits might be wrong, somebody may be missing. It's not really detailed.
It's not.
The experience of going to a record store and picking up a vinyl or a tape or a CD and reading the credits was a whole other experience.
It was part of buying the record and being excited about a song that you bought with your allowance money or whatever it was.
And you talked about it. Like I remember when I was younger, we would buy albums. I remember when Control came out from Janet. I had a friend who was like a big Janet Jackson fan, and I love Janet too. I'm a huge fan. But I remember she was like, "Did you see that Monty Moore did Pleasure Principle,
right.
and that Jimmy and Terry produced most of the album, and that Spencer Bernard did He Doesn't Know I'm Alive, and Janet played keys on the album, and she programmed with them, and she produced and she wrote." We would have these discussions.
That's exactly the conversations that I would have, because you find out that some other artist that you know from something else did this and that on another person's album, or played instruments that you didn't even know of, or wrote the song that you didn't even know of. So I miss that. Yeah, nowadays, you listen to music on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, whatever, and you just listen to it, and you don't know what the song really consists of and who played a part in what.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, growing up with a dad as a musician, I would still like to know, but I also don't have the time or energy at this point to find out, because there is no booklet. So now I'm going to have to, I don't know, go through Google and still maybe not find it within 5 minutes.
That's why I love Asia, because they still do packaging. They still sell physical copies. They actually do elaborate packaging. So you see the booklet. They have this decorative art CDs. It's sometimes a box.
Oh yeah.
Like a box set. So for me, that part is gone, because how will I know? Like if you take, for example, Beyonce, her new song, right? Break My Soul.
So the Robin S.
Well, it's actually not a direct sample, but no one knows. She co-produced the song, but no one really knows. No one's talking about the fact that she's been co-producing all of her songs. But no one talks about that, and I think for creators who are doing the extra work,
they should get the credits.
I would like them to be acknowledged for the extra work that they're doing and that they're putting in, not just that they're singing. But they may be playing keys, like I mentioned earlier. Janet was playing keys on that album. No one knows that, but I remember it's in the credits. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
You're not only a singer, but you're also a musician.
A producer. And so when you're producing, that means that you are putting the record together from the top to the bottom with the co-producers. Yeah. They're not just calling you, hey, it's time to sing. Come in, sing the song.
No, you're part of the entire song process.
Right, and I think that that's the thing where we missed it, because I knew when I was a kid, I knew Prince did everything. I knew Prince did everything.
Prince is known for doing everything.
Right, but when we know that, we probably would know it if there wasn't a press release, but when we know it in digitally, unless we looked. So I think it's important to acknowledge all the talents that people are bringing to the table.
Absolutely, and I do that with my own artist. Shout out Lady SHINee. This shameless plug, but I make it known that she plays everything. She produces, she sings, she songwrites. I
asked you, and you told me.
And you have to put that out there nowadays, because it also differentiates you from other artists. Yeah. Going to, nice little bridge, because you were talking about Asia. We've been talking about culture and music in the States. But you are not only known for having done music and songs with R&B, hip-hop artists, but also dance. I mean, you're very known in Europe. You've worked with a lot of dance artists, DJs, producers. How did that come about? How did you make that shift?
That's a good question. So I started off in dance like years ago, just because in New Jersey, people don't understand. New Jersey is a dance capital.
Really? I didn't know that.
So Tony Humphries was one of the pioneers of dance music from New Jersey, from near where I grew up. And dance music and house music is a big deal. Still is.
Yeah,
in New Jersey.
It still is. Yeah.
So subsequently, I was in college and I did my friend, I have a really good friend of mine who was quote unquote my manager at the time with the school. His name was Craig Stowers. He's like, I know this label, they need a song. So Craig was like, okay, you can come down and record it. So I wrote the song called Keep Hope Alive. It was released on vinyl. It's called Secrets from the Garden. And so I did that, left it alone. Then my friend Edgar was like, look, I need to write a song for this artist, Selma. And you help me out because we're working on songs anyway. And so that
was the power song?
That was the power song. So that was the first foray, but move forward, like 2000, I would say 11. I was working with this artist named 𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗥𝗝𝗦, and we were writing together. And he's from Sweden, incredible artist. Check him out, 𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗥𝗝𝗦. And he signed to Phrase Differently, which is ran by Hidden Bahara. And Hidden was like, we need to work on this song. So I got with Andreas, and I worked on a song called The Power of You and Me, which was by Room. I think the artist was named Room from like Denmark or something, and it was like an EDM song.
Okay.
And I was like, oh gosh, this is dance. I'm back in dance. So then we did a couple others. We did one with Tiesto and Hardwell called Colors. And then I wanted to do house. I wanted to do like house music. So I had a really good friend of mine named Rodney Hill, who actually works for 𝗑𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏.
Oh, right.
The A&Rs for 𝗑𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏.
Right.
And Rodney was like, okay, we met in the studio. I was like, I want to do house. He's like, okay, cool, I can get you some production. So I started writing, me and Charlie Vox started writing some house songs. And we got a record on a label called Nervous Records called Get Back Up Again, which is out now. And then I was in London. I got a call. I was in London when Disciples were like Nathan Duvall, Gavin Coleman, and Luke Mack, when they came together.
Right.
And they formed as Disciples. So Disciples.
So you were there from the start.
I was there from the start. So when they formed, they were like, okay, we're gonna do this music. And then, Nathan, who's like my little brother, so close, he sent me the track that they did. He said, we want you to write to it. So me and a friend of mine, Daniel Mel, wrote the song, sent it in, didn't think anything of it. They liked the song, but they weren't signed yet. They were essentially just like coming under.
Just doing their thing and like.
Underground at the time.
Right.
So then fast forward 2 years later, they had a hit called How Deep Was Your Love with Calvin Harris.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then the No Worries, which is a song we wrote, came back up. So I was going to London, so I went back to London, while I was there, I re-recorded it with them in the studio. Nathan and the guys produced me again.
Right.
And then David Guetta got on the record, and then it came out, and I'm singing on the record.
Right.
Which is crazy, because that wasn't the plan.
I know, but you've been singing on these dance records.
Yeah, there's other artists who sang on the record before me, and I was like, okay, we want you to sing. So that happened while I was having my work with an artist named Sodom, and I released a release. So I started to see a door, like where I can sing again, which is house music. And so since then, I've been putting out house little features and releases. And I still write for other people. I write, written other songs.
Yeah.
I got a few dance records coming out in the next few weeks.
And then you also moved into the K-pop space.
Yes.
It's like Curtis Richa's conquering the world in every type of genre. Really. You could. I mean.
Well, it started with J-pop. Like 2006, I worked with Kumi Koda, who was like one of the biggest female artists there. We had a hit record with her. It was like really a big hit record called Cherry Girl. And then I worked in Japan for a while, did some records. Then I had a friend of mine named Christian Fast who was working in K-pop. He's like, you should try K-pop. I was like, okay, cool. So that was around 2014. Then I connected with a label, SM. Then I got on an artist named Super Junior group. And it's funny because that same group, I have a record coming out with them later this year, which is funny, but that was my first track. But that song that we placed was 7 years old. It was a 7-year-old demo that I recorded in Sweden.
How did that get played? Did you just also happen to send that along?
Right,
or?
so I believe that no song is unfurnished or old. Like
right.
I feel like,
I agree.
I believe that it's old, it might be older to me or dated, but it may not be to someone else. So
But it's also, if you make timeless music, songs are never old.
Right,
yeah.
so they sent me an idea what they wanted. I just sent them songs. I don't overthink it. I just, because they can change their mind. Just send them.
You have your little folder of what you want to send.
Yeah, I thought this will be a good song. They picked.
Right.
I sent other songs that I thought might be better, but they picked this song.
That one, yeah.
And so we had to find the files because it was 7 years old. So I reached out to
redo it.
Yeah, Emmanuel Alston, a great producer from Sweden, and we did it with a great producer named Jason Gill, who actually sang the demo. So we had to get the files, and then we got it to them. So that was my first foray, and then I got a couple other ones, and then Taemin, Move, which was a strange situation.
That was a big one.
Because that song was not originally for K-pop. It was a dance record. And me and ADN Lewis, who's an artist I work with a lot, I work with him, and we started the idea.
Did you have to alter the song for him, or did he make it more K-pop, I guess?
Well, so what happened was we sent, the original demo was called Don't Fight the Music. And we didn't finish it. We did everything but like certain parts of the song for the dance, because you don't need a whole song for dance.
Right.
So I remember sending it to the DJ, and I went to sleep that night. I had a nightmare, and there was a voice that said, "Take the song back, take the song back."
That's scary.
So I had to take it back, and I felt bad. So and they wanted the song. The DJ wanted the song, and so what ended up happening was, we gave them another song. We wrote another song for him. ADN was like, "Why are we taking the song back?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know for some reason." So
a voice in my head told me.
So I sent that song in blindly,
right,
with a bunch of songs for a group called SHINee, who's huge in Korea. SHINee, I got an email from the A&R a year later, from the time I sent it, saying, because I forgot I sent it. "Hey, is this song still available?" I said, "Sure." "We want it for Taemin." I knew who Taemin was because he's from SHINee. So I said, "Sure, why not?" But we didn't finish the song. So I had to call in I had to call in one of my good friends, 𝗬𝗙𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗏, who I knew could really just
Miss
take
Sinlu,
Miss Sinlu on Instagram, who could take it all the way home. And she did that. She went in with ADN in LA. She finished the song. We finished the production. Wow. And then we sent it back. They translated in Korea, they cut it in Korea, and the rest is history. But it took a year.
So this is a great example of being patient. Some things just take longer before it pops off. Yep. And just because it doesn't take right away or the next week or the next month even, doesn't mean it's not good.
Right.
If you know that what you make, what you create, whatever it is good, then stick to that. Stick to that. Yeah,
I mean, some of my bigger cuts took a year, 2 years to really come into fruition. Even like 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 took 2 years, Colors took 2 years, the _𝗏𝗏 record took 2 years.
So 2 years has been like kind of like the, if you make something, okay, maybe in 2 years this will be.
And then also too, if you have it's important to have a catalog too, because you never know what is requested of you.
Yeah.
So you want to be prepared, not that you have to run in and do it. It's just there. So there's songs that have been older that have gotten cut. Like I just had a recent cut that was a song that was like 3-4 years old. So you just never really know.
Right.
So I learned this early in my career. You kind of have to have blinders on. You have to have this kind of stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
So if I pitch something somewhere, I hear nothing, then I don't stop pitching. I just keep pitching elsewhere. Keep pitching elsewhere. Right. Sometimes they don't hear.
Don't bet on one horse. Also.
Or sometimes they may not hear for that project, but then they'll turn around later and say, "Hey, I think this works for this project." That happened to me recently with a song that just got wind of that I pitched years ago. The A&R was like, "Oh, I think this would be good for this."
Yeah.
But it was a male record. They wanted for a female artist. So it's just you have
just
to
don't
be
know. You have to be
flexible and available.
Yeah.
And once again,
but I think I think that also comes with creating, in the case of songs, creating songs that are flexible as well and that are timeless. Because if you make a trendy song, that may not work in 7 years. So it has to have some, I mean, you teach, master classes on songwriting. So you kind of have somewhat of a formula, what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
We still don't always know, it's not a guarantee, but there are some things that, I mean, I can't make some type of trendy song with some crazy sounds that might not work in 10 years. It has to be something that people will always be able to relate to, I think.
I agree. I think you have to be, like when I was doing I did a master class recently, the Master the Mix. And the question was, can I do different genres? Is it taking away from my brand if I release songs from different genres? I was like, no. I said, because at the end of the day, creativity is creativity. And we don't know what the public is going to gravitate towards.
Right.
So you can be doing dance, but then you put an R&B song out, and that could be the song that launches your career. And then that gives you a litmus test of where you should be headed towards. Doesn't mean you stop doing the other things. It's just important to kind of, it's just like food. Like, we're sampling different things and we're seeing what we like the most. So that's very key in dealing with music. And I think I come from an era where I was influenced by so many different genres. There was no segregation in the 80s.
There was not in music.
Not in the late 70s, 80s, there was no segregation. I listened to Genesis, Peter Gabriel, Chaka Khan, Natalie Cole, Earth, Wind & Fire,
Public Enemy,
Fleetwood Mac, Public Enemy, listen to Madonna and Janet. You listen to every Huey Lewis in the News.
It was all pop.
It was all pop music. So it wasn't really, there was no segregation. I think Michael Jackson really broke the doors down with that, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think so, for me, it's just really understanding that as a creator, and this is what I was told early on, you should be available and flexible to create anything.
Yeah.
There should be, I don't do that. I don't do this type of music. I don't do that.
If you want to do it, just do it. Follow.
You have to be, nowadays, you absolutely have to be flexible. And you have to think global, too.
You have to have more talents, You
have to think global.
Minding the time. I already mentioned it before. The way you look today, I'm loving it.
Oh, thank you.
Putting the bling on, I feel so basic.
No.
For today's outfit, I have to ask you, because I know there's a story behind the shoes you're wearing. Now, normally people come here with the craziest sneakers, but you actually have a story with these shoes. Can you tell us who these shoes are from? A local designer?
Yes, they're from a company called Blue Lobster, and they're on Instagram. Blue Lobster is spelled LOBSTR, and these are called the Bellevue Rockies. And I love them because they have the spike. They're so comfortable. I can run in these shoes. They're so comfortable. They're all leather. They're made in Portugal, with the designers in Holland, and they're located near the Food de Holland.
Oh, the Food Holland.
Right in there. And I was walking by.
That's around the corner for you.
Yeah, so I walked by and I saw these shoes and I had to get them because they're just so comfortable and they're so cool. And I never get shoes like this, but they feel like a sneaker. Yeah. But they're like a shoe that's made of leather.
Shoe. Yeah.
So you can do formal, you can do non-formal with it.
Yeah. No, I like that because, like I said, normally people come here with the craziest sneakers, but this is a good story behind the shoe you got, and
it's a local designer.
Yeah, local designer, and we already talked about the black and a broad shirt.
Yep.
Whoever wants to get it, I'll make sure to put up a link.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, you got your beanie on.
Yeah, my little Adidas beanie on. And these are my Primark pants. Primark, we love Primark. We don't.
And then
there's
the
not
glasses.
A lot in America. The glasses are Cassell.
Yes.
So Cassells usually make the funky. I have those pair, but these are like the more formal version of the Cassells.
But I love the. I mean, they're part of the culture,
Yeah, they're definitely part of the culture. They like all the major rappers in the '80s wore Cassells, and and I do have those pairs. I do, but I just felt like this one would be perfect for today.
No, thank you so much for being here. I did learn a lot about your story that I didn't necessarily know, because you know we'd be like going everywhere and talk about everything. I'm happy to finally have had you in a comfortable space, where like eating some cake and having your story, but also I'm surprised I got to cram this into 1 hour, because you have so much more to tell. You're like the you're like an 𝗬𝗙𝗏𝗏 to me with the knowledge you give. You have so many gems that you give out, if we would get into that, but I wanted it to be more about you, but we still talked about music. Now, one of the things that I always want to ask is, in people's fields, who would you still want to work with? Like, who would you absolutely want to write a song for or have a placement with? Like, name 1 or 2 people.
Oof. I mean, all the people I want to work with are just utterly amazing. I would love to work with Ed Sheeran if I could. He's amazing.
Oh wow, yeah.
Of course, let me think, who else? There's so many artists that I want to work with. I think definitely Beyonce.
Well, we're speaking things into existence.
Yeah, Beyonce would be great. I think she's underrated as a vocalist as well. She's incredible.
And she's more seen as an entertainer.
I think she does a lot that she doesn't get credit for. But there's so many, I think it's more producers that I would love to work with.
So name 1?
My all-time, I would like...
Missy? Have you worked with Missy?
No, man, Missy, I mean, she probably don't need me, but I would sit in a room with her, but I definitely would love to, it would be great if I could collaborate with her. Jamin Lewis would be, I met them once, and I think if I can work with them in some capacity. I
spoke to them on Clubhouse. That was my little highlight.
I think the young Curtis, like the inner child in me, would freak out. Because I think if I can work with them with any artist, that would be great. Of course, you know, there's artists I love now, like her and Jasmine Sullivan, and so many artists. You know, of course, you know, there's hip hop artists like Nas, who I love.
Yeah. Well, you got the way in through what's his name?
I don't know what's up.
Anyway.
And of course, you know, there's artists I respect, like, you know, Nicki Minaj and Drake and all Lil Wayne, the Young Money.
Yeah.
I love a lot of artists. As far as me wanting to work with an artist, listen, I like working with new artists.
Right.
To be honest, like
that's what I know.
The established artists, if it happens, it's great.
Yeah.
But they've done the road work already. Yeah. And I respect their place.
You want to help these young people get to I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah, I would love to work with Rihanna again, but it's I think me mentally, I'm excited for the new artists.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we have ADN Lewis I'm working with. We're working on things. Jordan Halo, there's WURLD, the African artist. He's amazing, prolific writers. They're all prolific writers, and there's 𝗬𝗎𝗏𝗏𝗏, the writer.
Wait, what happened with? Wasn't he performing here the other day? What happened with that?
Yeah, it didn't happen. I'll tell you later.
But he didn't end up performing here. Oh, okay. Because I was like, did I miss it?
No, you wouldn't have missed it.
All right.
And then there's 𝗬𝗎𝗏𝗏𝗏, who's a singer-songwriter here. Brand Bonder. There's so many great local talent here, and then Donna Lugassi, who I love too.
Shout out to
Donna, and there's just so many incredible people that I've met. Of course, you know, our friend Ivy, who's great. Charlie Vox. There's so many great people that I'm surrounded by greatness.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me to work with the people I can work with, that I work with now, is a privilege.
Right.
So working with a major artist
is nice, but
I feel like you make more of a mark when you build with someone.
I feel the same way, because you can't necessarily do anything for those people anymore, but you can for the people that are still coming up.
Yeah, like I like art, like I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
you're a fan first.
Like I grew up like with Janet. I was such a huge Janet fan when I was growing up, and partially because Jamin Lewis, because and then I followed their body of work through all the other artists that they work with. So for me, it's not so much matter of working with them; it's a matter of learning.
Right.
Because there's things that they know that I don't know, because they've had experiences that I haven't had. So I'm a student of the game. Like, I love Rakim as a rapper. So I want to know what was it like to do what you did in those days.
I'm gonna ask him that question. He's here next month.
Okay, good. Ask him. Tell him I asked.
We'll see. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna round up this conversation. But if people who are watching this want to actually work with you, where can they hit you up?
Well, on my Instagram, I'm at 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, CurtisRicha, @CurtisRicha. On Twitter, I'm at 𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗡𝗥𝗏. The 𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗡𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 reach me there. Instagram, I'm very instant, so definitely Curtis Richa.
He always replies.
I will reply.
He's not,
you can send your music, and I'll listen to it and reply. I believe, because I remember how I started, and it was always good to get good feedback from people. Yeah. And I want to encourage other creators, especially new creators, to just continue on your journey and don't give up until you get to your goal. Yeah. And even if you get to your goal, go past your goal.
Yeah. Set new goals. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
thank you,
and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
Oh, I did. The talk, the conversation, and the cake was great.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
And everybody tune in next time. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.